Okay, today we're back in the Mayfair office. It's a popular venue recently with Ling, but there's a good reason for it because Pete lives in Toronto. So we're lucky to get you here. So thanks very much for coming all the way to London, Pete. Right, so you're the founder of the Smart Betting Club, formerly the Secret Betting Club.
Yeah.
Give us a brief overview of what the club offers.
So the club, I think the central goal of the club is to help people with their betting. So help people who make smarter decisions with their betting, and primarily that's through tipster reviews and analysis. It sounds quite simple, but we go quite in depth with that analysis. So everything from Monte Carlo simulations to betting bank and staking plan analysis, and really go quite granular in that to provide more of a financial platform, financial approach to it. As you might see if you get stock and shares reports and brokers reports, and they go quite detailed into their analysis, and we try and take that point of view and approach betting from that side of things. So primarily it's there to help people who maybe time poor or skill poor, because most people it's very difficult to beat the bookmaker. So through the use of tipsters and good strategies and services, it is possible, and we'll probably talk about that. So that's the main thrust of what we do, but aligned to that there are other things that impact people who are punters. Whether it be disputes with bookmakers, whether it be the psychology of betting, which is a really important part of it. So we try and explore all those facets that link in with the ultimate goal of helping people make a profit from their betting, whether it's the first time or whether it's to add on top of additional profits. That's our goal. So we're fairly unique in that as a club we're funded by our members, not by advertising or outside influencers or outside investment. So we can actually be unique in terms of we can criticize people where we feel there needs to be criticism, perhaps where other outlets might not.
Okay, so what was the you said unique, and it appears to be unique. I've sort of looked around. So what was the inspiration to start the service in the first place, or the club?
Well, when I first started, I was with my friend at the time, and he moved aside a few years ago. I took over sole ownership of it. Then we were just interested in betting. It was at that time, like 2005, and obviously had the growth of the internet age of betting, and we were mid-20s, and we had, well, I suppose that sweet spot. If you look at, I think it's Malcolm Gladwell wrote about the likes of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. They obviously had the skills and the technical ability, but they also at the right time in the right place. So mid-20s, they probably didn't have families. They had an interest in those areas, and they're able to take advantage of that with personal computer boom. And it's a bit similar with that, really. You see a lot of people like my age and similar who have been in betting because around the 2000s it was accessible. Suddenly with the internet boom, obviously the taxation was removed and Betfair came along. So there was a lot more, if you like, tipsters and things like that at the time. And because we were interested in betting, we started to explore and had some success. It just made sense to set up a business exploring this world. And I think the inspiration, I've talked about this in the past, was we got a mail shot through the post from someone doing something very similar to what we do now, but we read it and it was clear it was just almost advertising or affiliation, or they were just scratching the surface. They weren't really going in depth, and it was, this service is paying us a chunk of money, so we're going to recommend them, versus this service is actually quite good. So from that, it made sense to try and set something up online through whereby we could give it a go. And we just don't know at that time whether it's going to sink or swim, but from those small beginnings, we grew the business to where it is now.
Okay, so you've been running the club since 2006?
Yeah.
And that was a Secret Betting Club?
Yeah.
And in 2017 you became the Smart Betting Club?
Yeah.
I mean, how much else has changed apart from the name over the years?
Well, in terms of the amount of services and products that we've reviewed, so there's a lot in our back catalogue, and it's not about finding the hot new service all the time. It's often about reporting it back on those guys that have been around for a long time and continually beating the big bookmaker over a long period of time, because that is a skill. You can get lucky over a short-term period, but to beat them over a decade or longer takes a hell of a lot of skill. So there's a lot in terms of those services that we've analysed and report on. There's a big database there, but I say like the evolution of services and betting in general has changed significantly. Obviously Betfair came along and that's changed things, but even now, the market today from 5 years ago, there's lots of different issues, whether it be getting on, for example, or the type of bookmakers that are available and options that are available to you. So we as a service and the tipsters and the punters have all had to evolve how they bet and what they bet upon based on the market and how that has changed. So I'd say that's probably the biggest change. Who knows where we'll be in 5 years' time? Will we be looking at other exchanges or crypto betting or whatever it might be, and we'll need to adapt to those changes.
Yeah, I mean, when I was getting into racing first of all, I used to get the £2 one horse letter in a brown envelope through the post, and even though it was good fun, my impression of tipsters was quite sort of jaded really, because it was obviously a big con.
Mm-hmm.
But recently I found that obviously there were some really good services out there. Were you surprised about the quality of the advice that's available and has been available?
I think initially it was, we're not so much surprised, it was just because we were exploring it, and I would say it's just been a gradual development of that, and I would put that down to, like, it's so much easier to run your own personal website now, to run a small business. You know, even 15 years ago it was more difficult, everything from the infrastructure of setting up a website, having a designer to do it, payment processing, having a mailing list, marketing. It was all a little bit more difficult, whereas now it's, you know, off the shelf, you can go and do it within a day, and you could have a business and you can be taking money for selling betting advice. So I think that's enabled a lot more people that perhaps were put off by the need to run a premium phone line, or, you know, send a letter through the post or whatever it might be, and try and compete in that world. So I'm not surprised these days, as there's a growing number of people who see that as a genuine way to, you know, if they're pro punters, they might use it as a way to provide a more stable income, if you like, or to utilize their information that they're betting upon in a way to generate more money. So yeah, not particularly surprised at the moment.
Okay, I was at the races recently and I was approached by, apparently he's a right dodge part, who told me that he's got like 700 people paying him 30 quid a month for his tips on TikTok.
Okay.
I mean, do you sort of monitor services like that, or do they have to approach you?
No, it's social media is, you know, it's a mess. You know, I don't think we proof or recommend anyone that's just tips on social media. It's a good way to develop a brand and to connect with people and to market. But as a format and the platform to actually supply tips and run a service, generally no, there's no transparency. You can manipulate social media quite easily. So yeah, unfortunately there are rogues like that still out there taking advantage. You know, if you look on Twitter, you look on TikTok, whatever it might be, there's always going to be someone trying to take advantage in an unregulated industry like this, where you don't need any experience or any, you know, there's no certificate you can get from such and such to say you're a qualified tipster. You could go and set up an account tomorrow and sell your tips. And unfortunately, if they're very good at marketing and selling themselves, like this guy might well be, I think I know who you mean, then yeah, they can actually capture people and take advantage of them.
So what you're basically, your service is taking a lot of the risk out of trying to sort the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah.
So I've spoken to a lot of professional punters, and they talk about the need to keep evolving to stay ahead of the game.
Yeah.
How many of the tipsters, you know, you must have done some for nearly 15 years or more. How many of them have stood the test of time and stayed profitable since you started?
There's probably about a handful that have stuck around for like best part of 2 decades now. And again, they've had to, like I say, they've had to adapt and evolve. So they might have, there's one racing tipster I know of who's an exceptional tipster, and he's had to change the structure of his service. So sometimes you've gone from maybe charging a subscription fee and quoting the best prices, because back in 2005, I remember you could get on his odds with firms like Ladbrokes and not get restricted and do quite well. And whereas these days you'd be lucky to get a couple of winners with them and before your account gets scrubbed. So they've evolved in terms of, for example, his service has evolved in terms of how he advises prices, how he settles prices, and sometimes like pay per profit, and trying to make it really fair for people. So not quoting the top odds, quoting the odds at a time with several bookmakers at a time when the market's more liquid. So it's evolved like that in terms of services, especially the good ones that know how to stick around, to make sure that what they quote is not just theoretical but practical in terms of what you can obtain if someone's following your service.
Yeah, okay, so is there not a danger that the most successful people that you highlight are going to be victims of their own success, with too many of your clients all trying to back the same horse at the same time, because the bookmakers watch those spikes, don't they?
Yeah, and that goes down to understanding in terms of the service itself, if they get greedy. There's a couple out there that I know of, and we don't really focus too much, where they just get greedy and have as many members as they can, and they quote the earliest price available, like overnight prices, and like overnight prices don't stand up. And if you're taking 25 to 1 and the horse is 12s come 9 in the morning and it starts at 6 to 1, good luck keeping your account. But there are services out there that do that, and there are other services that take on too many members that push down a price. So it becomes a balance between the service and generating an income. They often put membership caps on, or they tip later in the morning or in the afternoon at a time when the market can absorb the membership, the number of people taking a price. And that's what you'll find. You might get a racing tip which is top price 7 to 1 with one firm, and then it's 13-2 with a few, and then maybe 6-1 general. Now you'll often find tipsters might just quote that 6-1 and settle at that 6-1 if assuming its value. And if you can beat that, well done, but that's a general price, and that's what you find the well-run services are actually not just scraping the best price, but no one really is going to get. And if you do, if you take 7-1 and everyone sees that, and those bookmakers know, everyone else is 6-1, they were top price, it's the type of thing that's going to flag your account, so you have to be mindful of that at all times.
Yeah, no, I must be the sort of person that subscribes to your services because I'm basically a lazy punter, following through Shrewies. And there's some really, really clever judges, but they can have terrible, terrible losing runs because they're picking value. So if you ever had any negative feedback where somebody's been monitored just when they're in the worst run ever, and you sort of slated their service when ultimately, I mean, how long a spin do you give them?
A long time, yeah. We wouldn't do that really. We would look at the long term. So yeah, sometimes tipsters come to me and we go to review them. We say, oh, it's a really bad time to review this because we're having a bad couple of months. I'm like, well, I don't care about 2 months in isolation. I want to see, I've got 2 years, or I've got 5 years, or I've got 5,000 data points of results that I've proved and I can see. So why am I going to be bothered about 200 in isolation? That's just mathematics, and it's just probability, and that's all to be expected. So yeah, it's about the numbers, and our analyst is an actual actuary. He's a financial actuary, he's a trained actuary, and we work together. I work very closely with him.
You have to tell me what that is.
I think they work in insurance, so they look at risk and insurance. Right. So very good at crunching big numbers and large data sets and working out what the analysis provides and what their risks actually are. And a lot more money at stake than in the betting and tipping world, I think. So he's trained and able to help spot flaws in data. Maybe I've had tipsters in the past that have an excellent return on investment or profit, but then if you look at their data, you can see it's based on isolated wins, maybe a 200-1 winner, or 100-1, or a combo bet, a multiple bet that had a lucky 15, and that's made 80% of their profits. And you look at it and you think, well, how sustainable is that? How many 2,000-1 shots are they going to actually hit? So it's about getting into the data, exploring that, and taking as many data points as you can. And so, yeah, we never worry too much about 2 months here or a few hundred bets, because I know people like to get hung up on that. I think there's some kind of idea of form. Generally, there isn't. It's just quality. Comes to the top over the long term, and people need to view it from that perspective.
Okay, have tipsters ever said you don't include this? Because, I mean, what would be the average number of active clients you've got at a certain point?
Just short of 1,000. It depends, right. Yeah.
So if you highlight a service and then all of a sudden 1,000 people think, right, we're going to, that can totally destroy that person's potential profit.
Possibly. I'll generally say they have membership caps, and then not all that group of people are going to go and join that service. Yeah. I always advise people to follow the services and tipsters that work for them, their circumstances. You might have, you might have a young family, you might have work commitments, you might have other commitments, so you can't take bets at certain times. You might not have bookmaker accounts available. You might have a whole suite of them. So it's a matter of judging the tipsters and services that suit you. So I might find a service that is particularly good for people who like to bet on exchange, who are limited by accounts. And those types of people will go for it. I might find a tennis service, and then it's only the people that are really interested in tennis that are going to get involved, or who have the accounts available or the bankroll available for it. So generally you don't get one where everyone goes and joins, but yeah. But from the service point of view, that's something they welcome. I never know how many people are going to join. If I send them 100 clients, I don't know if I send them 100 or I send them 10. It doesn't matter to me. I don't know the number. I'm not interested in that because I have no investment in it. I generally we don't get 1,000 people joining a service and then ruining the value for everyone.